Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Infinite Danger Room. I'm Matt Price. I am here with Matt Howlett, Anthony Brown, and Chris Borthick, and we are here to talk about the spectacular Spider-Man. I don't know if you guys watched the show back in the day, but there is a new Spider-Man series launching called Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, kind of throwing back to that series that started in 76. And this is a little bit more of a classic Spider-Man tale with his friends and foes, where Amazing is kind of in a big multi-year layered arc. This looks like it's going to maybe be a jumping on point, especially if you're maybe just coming to Spider-Man via the new motion picture, Spider-Man Homecoming, getting ready to hit theaters as well. So let's let everybody kind of go around, share their thoughts, see what they thought about this issue. On store shelves now, it's written by Chip Zdarsky and drawn by which Kubert? Adam Kubert. So, Chris, why don't we start your direction, and we'll just all kind of talk about what we liked about this one.
Well, I have to say, I really enjoyed this Spider-Man. It has that classic feel of the old Spider-Man stories. To me, it's just, it's got the obligatory, if you don't know Spider-Man's origin, we're going to catch you up on page 1. And some interaction with Johnny Storm, and then him doing a traditional crime-fighting run through the city and stopping some bank robbers. One of the things I really liked throughout this book was the cameos and the humor. Then it's some good old Spider-Man humor, plus, you get Ant-Man, you get Captain America, Falcon, you get the Human Torch, you get Uatu, and I mean, it's just pretty good. And then there's I'm assuming this is the new Iron Man cameo appearance?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, I'm not up on the current Iron Man. I know.
Ironheart.
All right, thank you, sir. So I really enjoyed it. A lot of fun. I think him getting asked out on a date in the middle or just after saving a lady from a robbery is pretty cool. I am instantly suspicious of the good thinker, but that's me. You're a good tinkerer, I suppose. Overall, that's my initial thoughts. My only downside really is that, and I told Anthony this, when I got to page 2, the big spread with Johnny Storm where he's having lunch. So I haven't seen Johnny Storm's costume. I thought it was some weird Dark Phoenix character that I didn't know anything about.
Tie his new costume.
I don't know what that is, and I still kind of think he looks like a Phoenix from outer space or something. So he should probably work on that. But very cool, and I like seeing their friendship kind of defined out. And I know they've been doing that more and more. So that's my take.
All right, Anthony Brown, what is your take on Spectacular Spider-Man #1?
I really enjoyed it. It's always great when the Kuberts are doing art for Marvel. It's funny that they're both, one's drawn for Marvel and the other's drawn for DC right now, but the art was great. All the cameos were great. There were a lot of one-liners and quick wit throughout the story, which, if you're reading Amazing Spider-Man, or if you've been reading Amazing Spider-Man, some of the stuff's been a lot heavier, with the clone conspiracy, with the Goblin War, and just everything like that. So this was a breath of fresh air to see Spidey kind of get back to his New York roots and have some fun and see some guys. And, he gives Ant-Man a lift because he's like, hey, my helmet's broke. And then that's how he found out about the good Tinkerer, and apparently everyone had been using him except for Spider-Man. So it was great for them to introduce a new character as well, and see some old classics show up. I'm always a fan of when Spider-Man and Johnny get together because they tend to share some laughs, and there are some throughout the book and at the end. But we won't jump into that quite yet, so I'll toss it to Matt and hear his thoughts.
All right, I agree basically with everything both of you guys said. I thought this was the funniest Spider-Man issue I've read since Spider-Man Short Halloween that was written by Seth Meyers and Bill Hader. That came out about 8 or 9 years ago. I like the singing Spider-Man as he's swinging through the streets, singing Pretty Woman in here. That reminds me of Michael Straczynski used to do that in the panels of his book all the time. He'd have him singing "Feeling Groovy" or some oldie song, and that's the Spider-Man that I kind of got into Spider-Man. You know, it's not the most popular run of Spider-Man, but there were some duds in his run. But I enjoyed reading this because it reminded me of what Spider-Man was like when I was a teenager, getting in the comics. Currently, right now, I actually bought the blank cover. This is the second one I'm going to buy here, holding in my hand, just because it has this funny how to draw Spider-Man in 6 easy steps tutorial in the back of it. So I like that because a lot of comics had that, kids comics, so it's kind of another throwback to what Spider-Man's comics were like when you were a kid. Another thing I was going to point out, and no one had said it yet, so I'm going to go ahead and say this. This new Tinker guy, he looks like Andre the Giant. Did anyone else notice that?
I mean, he's big too. So yeah.
Yeah. It's this panel right here, and I'm not sure which page it's on, but when you first get a good glimpse of his face,
Yeah.
I thought that it was Andre the Giant. They somehow incorporated him into the Marvel universe.
I think it's got to be some kind of homage with what he looks like. It's got to be some kind of homage to Andre the Giant.
But without giving away too much, not really sure where maybe this fits in with Secret Empire, because it looks like we have Falcon, Ant-Man, New York City isn't under a cloud. So maybe this is kind of
It could be post Secret Empire for all I know.
Yeah.
Spider-Man's costume also doesn't look like the one in Amazing either. So I don't know.
I think with stuff like that, they want to give people a relatively clean jumping on point, and so sometimes they aren't super clear about when it takes place in continuity, because they don't want to spoil. Like if you're reading Secret Empire, they want to be like, oh well, Spider-Man obviously survives or whatever. But it could be. If I was guessing, I would say it could be post, just based on. I don't know. Yeah, but right now there's not all the things happening in the middle of Secret Empire don't appear to be reflected in this book.
Right.
Although I guess it could technically be before. I mean, it's hard to say. I enjoyed it as well. I mean, these are some of the same things we kind of talked about, but the humor, good art, Peter Parker acting more in the way that you kind of expect a traditional Peter Parker to act. Some of the bumbling, some of the romantic fumbling, some of the joking with Johnny Storm. All that is good stuff. So strong first issue, and if I don't know how many people are unfamiliar with Spider-Man at this point, but if you're like, I heard Amazing is in the middle of all this stuff, I don't really want to get involved, this would be a good place to maybe, if you want to sample it without jumping in full forge, you can kind of jump in here and kind of see, if you enjoy the character or if this is something you want to follow. Okay, any other cons, anything negative you guys felt about this, or you're pretty positive along so far?
I did have one con, and it's just more of a storytelling joke. It seems like we don't really live in a world where someone waits around forever for someone to show up for a movie when we have cell phones.
I mean, it's a pretty good joke, but why wouldn't he text him or call him?
Yeah, in the panel before that happens, you have Peter Parker playing with his phone, trying to call somebody. And in the next panel, you have Johnny Storm sitting around waiting for Peter Parker to show up for a movie, and he's playing on his phone. And it's just like no one at any point could have texted each other saying, hey, where are you? Because this panel kind of makes it look like at least 9 minutes have passed by because they agreed to meet at 7:30 at one of their apartments. I can't remember whose apartment they're supposed to meet at. Peter's. So, which also opens another question: is how many people know Spider-Man's secret identity in the Marvel Universe?
It varies, but right now I'm not sure.
I guess maybe the Fantastic Four, because
they do for sure.
Or at least Johnny does.
Well, I mean, they've always known his secret identity.
Yeah, because he pretty much took his costume off pretty early on. So
I guess what I mean is, One More Day or Brand New Day, they kind of wiped a lot of the Spider-Man identity, and I just can't remember how much they've revealed over the course, and if Secret War erased any of that.
I don't know.
You guys would know more about that than I would.
I think it's FF, and then the New Avengers. He revealed himself in New Avengers.
Yeah, he did, but that Back in Black. So he revealed himself, but he was doing the Back in Black thing, and the Secret Invasion storyline, or the Secret Invasion storyline was going on during that time, but the Brand New Day storyline hadn't occurred yet. So at that point, it's kind of 50-50 on whether or not everyone knows. because he revealed himself to the new Avengers during that period. But that's where things get kind of hazy because shortly
Bort got
after
undone.
yeah. So either they do know or they don't. I kind of wish that they did because one of the things that came out of that was Jessica Jones had a crush on Spider-Man and they went to the same high school and everything else. And now, like, that's kind of gone and she's being written in a completely different way. But she was like, oh, I had such a huge crush on you. And now she's like, you know, super bad to the bone. I was going to use a different word. Detective person who's like just kind of rough and tumble. But I prefer the other version of her that was kind of a nerd and had a crush on Peter Parker and everything else. But I guess marrying Luke Cage might do that to you.
All right, guys, what do you think? Do you want to hit other high points from this issue, or do you want to talk about some of the other Spider stuff we had in mind?
We haven't talked about the little spoiler at the end yet.
Okay, do we want to talk about spoilers? All right, let's give spoiler warnings. For anyone waiting, Matt is going to spoil the end of the issue.
Oh, wait,
coming up.
I'm not ready.
He's going to spoil the end of the issue
I got to read it
coming
real
up.
quick and find out what it's about.
Wow.
Okay, all right. Spoiler.
So be aware. Spoiler alert here.
All right. Okay, I think we give enough time. All right. The last panel, we have a mysterious woman that greets Johnny Storm at Peter's apartment. And he's like, hey, who are you? And she says, oh, I was asking... she says, I was actually about to ask if you were talking about Peter Parker. My name's Teresa, and I'm his sister. Which we haven't seen Teresa since the Spider-Man original graphic novel, Family Matters, I think it was, or Family Business. It was written by Mark
I think
Waid.
it's Family Business.
Really cool art, and I was under the impression that was kind of an out-of-continuity story, but it looks like they're actually going to pull that in, so it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to explain how Peter Parker's had a long-lost sister in New York City. Pretty sure the Social Security or somehow someone would let him know when he became an adult so they don't actually get married or something like that. I think that's how it works in real life.
It's not like his relatives hasn't mysteriously popped up before. I mean, when his parents returned at one point, that was a big thing, and they were supposed to have been dead a long time. And I remember that from one of the arcs. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with it, with all of the resets and the deals and etc. that have happened to the Spider-Man continuity. It'll be interesting to see, and maybe that one of the resets somehow made your What If story a real story. But it's
I mean, it was left kind of ambiguous in that graphic novel at the end, like who is she really, and did this happen in continuity or not? But
well, they did something similar with Batman Son of the Demon, that original graphic novel back in the day, and that's how we actually have Damian Robin now, is because of that. Was it continuity question, and then all of a sudden it was.
Well, Marvel said all of their original graphic novels are supposed to be in continuity. So if you look back at the Avengers, like whether it's the first one or the second one, both of those have effects on what's going on now, because what's going on with Hank Pym actually happened in the Ultron original graphic novel, where at the end of it, you know, he flies into space with Ultron and they become merged together. And now the one that's running around now is the Hank Pym Ultron merge deal. In the X-Men original graphic novel, they actually, you know, fight with the team from the future in the Battle of the Atom. And so some of the stuff that spins out of that actually plays directly into the all-new X-Men series, and anytime those characters popped up. And it explained more about, like, who was the, you know, new Professor X, like, bald guy, and, you know, just, it made you, I don't know, either have a greater appreciation or greater devalue for Mystique, because apparently everyone has a kid with Mystique. And that team was full of characters who had kids by Mystique, so, you know, also apparently no one knows exactly how old she is, because it's like, here's Rogue, here's Nightcrawler, here's, you know, this Professor X kid, here's Wolverine's kid.
Since we're talking about Mystique, can Mystique turn into a man and conceive a child with a woman?
Chris Claremont said yes, but I think they told him he couldn't do it at the time.
Right. I have no idea. That's not where I wanted to go with this conversation. Great to have you back. Great to have you back.
That's fantastic.
Okay, so Teresa Parker,
Right.
potentially, or Durham, as I think she was in the Durand in the graphic novel. Looks like she's back. There was some mystery about whether or not she was actually the sister in the graphic novel. Not to spoil too much, it's a good graphic novel to pick up if you haven't read it yet. It's Mark Waid, James Robinson. Was it Gabriel Dell'Otto on the art? It was a painted type art. So anyway, and maybe that'll be something that they give another push if she's going to be a major character in this. I liked the fact that we set up a lot of supporting characters in this, which is something that when Spider-Man's been at its best, you've been invested in the life of his supporting characters, I think. So I think that's good to kind of give the supporting characters a pretty good push in this first issue. He's still hanging around with Avengers and so on, which he didn't do so much back in the day. But I like when he has interactions with regular people. I think that makes Spider-Man a more compelling character.
I also like the integration of the Marvel cameos. Like, I like Johnny Storm that he's in. I mean, he's technically a supporting character in this, but I like the fact that we see Ant-Man, we see Falcon, and they're like, oh, hey, Spidey, hey, how's it going? And I just like, it just kind of feels like this is a big universe, but we all live in New York, so we kind of run into each other, which is kind of cool. So.
Yeah, and I like the Ant-Man cameo too, but in this, it's not really a cameo because he's in several panels, but for a while I thought it was going to be like a Spider-Man Ant-Man team-up book, but there's in the story, Ant-Man explains to Spider-Man that something's wrong with his helmet and he can't grow to his normal size, and it looks like he's about maybe like 3.5 to 4 foot tall in some of these panels. Is that an established problem that Ant-Man has in the comics, or is that kind of...
He talks about it in here, but I don't know if it happened in any other issue or anything.
It happened in an issue when he was fighting the villain. I can't remember his name, and it actually points it out in the book, but Scott Lang just got into some trouble in a fight, and then that was that. So one of the things that has always been kind of nebulous to me is exactly how tall Peter Parker is, because it, depending on who's drawing him, he kind of varies in height.
Yeah.
But if you look at like what was originally said, like he's about like 6'4", 6'5".
Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Really?
I thought he was like 5'10" or thereabouts.
No, he's one of the taller heroes, and it's the same thing with his eye color. That also varies depending on who's writing him, because he's supposed to be a guy with hazel eyes. And,
well, there's no way with Flash Thompson towering over him in the early comics. There's no way he's that tall. It's Peter Parker identity,
it's the
right?
clones. They're everywhere.
So, where was that established? He's that tall?
Was that like if you look at like
Are you saying looking at him compared to?
No, I mean like
else
when you look at the origins and everything, it says Peter Parker. 6'5", brown hair, hazel eyes.
Wow.
In the Marvel Encyclopedia, like before they did the giant encyclopedias, and it was just in the back, like it would always give his breakdown.
I thought on the cards and stuff it had him being under 6 foot.
Well, I met Spider-Man at Universal Studios, and he was about my height, so I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. Google does say 5'10", but I don't know if that's any more accurate than what Anthony's looking at. So,
well, my information came out of a Marvel comic, so. But again, all that stuff always varies.
Well, maybe he got taller when he made the deal with Mephisto.
Okay, so 6 foot, 6'4", 6'5".
It's pretty dang tall.
That's pretty tall. He's not that tall.
About a foot taller than me. So what is that? I don't know anyone that's that tall. That just seems really weird.
I would think Thor would be that tall. Thor seems like he would be 6'5".
I was like Spider-Man was like I don't know anything.
We're going to talk about people's height now. So.
Tobey Maguire is how I always kind of perceive Spider-Man as.
Oh, really?
Like that's the voice that I hear in my head.
That is that. To me, Andrew Garfield was the perfect Spider-Man because he's a tall, slender guy.
Yep.
Okay, I can go with that. Parker. I can go with that. That's fine.
And like Andrew Garfield's like 6'3", so like you tack an inch on, like.
Right.
Well, actually, I take that back. I don't always hear Tobey Maguire's voice in my head. I hear.
I would hope not.
What was the name of the boy?
Just walking around.
What was the name of? Yeah, just in general, I hear his voice in my head.
Tobey Maguire, should I order this ice cream or not?
Well, I am lactose intolerant.
Tobey Maguire says no, Matt.
The guy that did the voice of the Spider-Man in the cartoons.
He's your Jiminy Cricket.
From
He's
83
like-
or from 60?
Or from MTV.
From the 90s.
Okay.
He was Aladdin.
Robbie Benson? Is that who it is?
He was also the boyfriend on Full House.
Oh.
I may be wrong on this.
This has been an
Matt,
interesting show.
You've been gone for a while. And I mean, you're in rare form today.
Welcome back. It's like, the only Spider-Man animated I remember, I think, is Neil Patrick Harris from MTV. Yeah, that's the only actor I know because he's semi-famous.
Well, I know Josh Keaton was the spectacular Spider-Man.
Are you looking
voice.
at that?
Yeah, I'm going to see if I
I
find
don't
the
know what that
1990s
guy
guy.
looks like. I just know his name was the voice from watching the credits.
Right.
Hold on.
See, I probably didn't pay that much attention. It wasn't like
Christopher Daniel Barnes, Peter Parker Spider-Man in the 1990s series, 94 series.
So it's not Scott Winger. Why did I think that?
I don't know.
I always thought the voice of Aladdin was the voice of Spider-Man.
Well, we've been pretty far in the weeds here.
I want to know this.
So we've done a 20-minute show, and I think that's pretty good news, honestly, that we've done a 20-minute show. I think we all recommend that you buy Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man #1.
Right.
I think we're all a little worried about if you hear Tobey Maguire's voice in your head. I think only Anthony thinks Spider-Man is 6'4", but I'm going to let that ride.
Yep.
Other than that, other final thoughts on this issue?
But he'd be swinging and he would skid his knees because he's so tall.
I just don't think he's that tall. I think he's like 5'10". But
Why would he need webs? He could just,
well, because I just don't know that if you're a 6'4" kid that Flash Thompson is coming up to you and knocking you down.
because he's real tall and skinny and lanky, and
Maybe.
maybe that's like a
Maybe.
Steve Ditko kind of Spider-Man.
You should ask Tobey Maguire right now.
And I mean,
What's his Twitter
I'm not
handle?
sure how tall Tobey Maguire
How
is
tall
either.
are you?
How tall are
Tobey
you?
Maguire's probably 6 foot, if that. I
He's
would
probably
think.
short.
Yeah.
We could IMDb that probably. This is like a tangent of.
Yeah, this has been a pretty big tangent. How tall is Spider-Man?
Spider-Man? We don't know.
Actually, I'm going to go back and
important.
say that Anthony has a good point here
About
Spider-Man being tall.
you think he is that tall?
I think
Or you think he could be?
I think that he has a legitimate. I don't think he made it up. I think he really did read that somewhere.
I appreciate that, man.
And okay, what was the name of the kid?
Ultimate.
What was the name of the kid that played Ender in Ender's Game?
Man, there's a lot of weird
Asa
questions in
Butterfield.
this.
Okay, Asa Butterfield
This
is
is going to be a black episode.
We're putting this out. No one's going to get to this part of the show.
okay. Asa Butterfield was supposedly going to be cast as Peter Parker, and there was a lot of rumors. There was a lot of stuff that pointed like that was going to be Peter Parker. If you don't know who Asa Butterfield is, he was in Ender's Game, The Space Between Us, Hugo, The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. Anyway, Asa Butterfield is 6 foot tall, and he is 20 years old, so he's about right age for a good actor to play Spider-Man, where he can still pull off a high school look, but then you could transition to college age pretty quick. And then all of a sudden he wasn't, and then we got Tom Holland, which I think was a great Spider-Man. But Asa Butterfield's 6 foot tall, and if you see him next to, like, and he is as tall as Harrison Ford when he did Ender's Game, and that was weird because he was a child. I think he had a growth spurt between the filming and the press releases and stuff like that. So, I mean, I guess I could see Spider-Man being 6 foot because I was ready to accept Asa
Sure,
Butterfield.
6 feet. I think is because I think Andrew Garfield is more like 6 foot or 6'1".
Well, Tobey Maguire, because I used IMDb on this.
There we go.
It's important. He is only 5'8", so he is.
Tobey
not
Maguire
tall.
is 5'8".
He's not tall at all. So now let's look up Andrew, because now I just got to know.
I think he's probably like 6 foot, 6'1", something like that.
Okay. What about the guy that played Spider-Man in X-Men in the deleted scene?
Oh, I thought you were going to go with like Nicholas. What's the name? Nicholas.
5'10" and a half, because that half is important.
Is that Andrew Garfield?
Yep, 5'10" and a half. Look, I'm sure you know this, but actors are short.
Actors, you just have. It's mostly
Tom
face.
Cruise is like the size of the atom.
Well, there's what I was going. That's where my information comes from. The 1991 Marvel set.
5'10".
That's
Yep,
why I
remember.
thought 5'10"
Well, he
was
was
based
so you're
on that card.
Andrew Garfield seems like he's a lot more than 2 inches taller than Tobey Maguire.
Well, but Remember, they do filming trickery. I mean, like,
Right. That's
like I
true.
know during the original Batman movie with Michael Keaton, apparently he stood on stuff, so he and Kim Basinger were the same height. So, and I think that's also happened with Tom Cruise. So, you know,
All right, so I'm going with the info from the 1991 Marvel trading cards. Does say 5'10", but I'm not saying that there's not something Anthony hasn't seen that has a different height, because things obviously have been different over the years. But that's where I remembered it from, was from the Marvel trading cards.
well, Anthony is sort of a Mr. Data when it comes to Marvel stuff, so I kind of trust his knowledge. I know he's got it from somewhere.
So if we figure out what that came from, in return for the riveting saga of how tall
It is.
are your Marvel heroes,
We do a whole podcast on that.
we do a whole podcast on the various heights, weights, 40-yard dash times.
What about Spider-Man from the Electric Company?
Might have been taller, you think?
I'm gonna say probably 5'10".
He could have been taller. I don't know, the electric company guy. Okay, I don't know that we have anything else to add. Do we have any closing thoughts? Anybody? Closing thoughts?
You should buy this issue. It's very cool.
Do we want to do... I think we could almost go to a whole other episode and do that.
I think so too.
Okay. All right, so we're going to do closing thoughts on Spectacular.
You should buy it. It's cool, and if you are a fan, even just coming back, you read it years ago, and you come back to it, it's going to feel like home.
Anthony, closing thoughts?
I've got plenty of thoughts, but they mostly involve Spider-Man's height. So buy the book. It was good. Can't wait to see the second issue. Thanks.
Matt, you want to wrap it up? Closing thoughts?
Spider-Man is one of the few comics that I will always buy, even if it stinks. But that's not the case here. It's amazing, but it's not amazing. It's spectacular.
It's spectacular. It's not only amazing, it's
But
spectacular.
Amazing Spider-Man's good too. Both are good books.
Okay, hey, thanks you guys for listening. If you've gotten this far, I'm somewhat surprised. What do you think about Spectacular Spider-Man, or how tall Spider-Man is, or any other things we discussed this episode? Feel free to tweet at us at Danger Infinite. Find us on Facebook at Infinite Danger Room, or send us an email, infinitedangerroom@gmail.com. You can also rate or review us on iTunes. You can also listen to the show via SoundCloud or at newsok.com. We'll be back next week with more comics, movie news, reviews, other things of that nature. For now, for Chris Borthick, Anthony Brown, Matt Howlett, I'm Matt Price, and thank you for listening.